All right. What it do, my people, what it is. We're here at CultureOf with another great episode today. I'm here with a good homie, Dave. I'm going to let him introduce himself a little bit more here in a second. But we have took a break from the podcast, probably for, what do you say? About?
Just we won't miss one episode.
We missed one episode, so about a month. Took a month off for the year, and we're right back to it. So we got a few really cool episodes coming up, and this is our next one. So, Dave, you want to introduce yourself real quick, man?
I'd be glad to, Jordan. Thank you so much for having us.
Most definitely.
My name is Dave Sandlin. Me and my wife own House of Commons. It's a bourbon library, bourbon bar here in downtown Frankfort. Mm-hmm. Me and my wife have been here in Frankfort for the last 3 years, and I got to tell you, Frankfort's home now.
Yeah.
So,
y'all have definitely made a staple here since you've been here. So
appreciate
I
that.
feel like you have one of the younger businesses in town, but I also think that you have, longevity-wise, a business that's going to be here for quite some time.
Appreciate that.
Quite some time. I mean, what y'all did with the place, seeing this place, I mean, we walk past it every day, and, you know, watching the building come to life over time has been amazing. And then seeing what you guys have did with the business has just brought a whole nother piece of life to downtown Frankfort. So we appreciate y'all being here and making it home, you know.
Appreciate it. It's an honor to be here. I tell people every day, I'm like, sometimes I just feel like I gotta pinch myself. I'm like, is this really the life I get to live? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Pinch, oh, it's real, you know? Like,
Yeah.
It's a great location. We were really blessed to step into a space that the building owner, Ben Harden, he did a phenomenal job with the renovation and created a space that Frankfort truly deserves. And,
For sure.
And created a space that I feel like is kind of a gem in the cap of downtown Frankfort. And so it's a blessing to be here, I gotta say.
I would say I think this is like the top tier bar, like place to come get a drink here.
I appreciate that.
I mean, just from the aesthetic to the vibe to the energy and everything else, it's just
Appreciate that.
beautiful. So, and I love how y'all have kept some of the like old brick showing and stuff like that in here. I think that's awesome. Definitely gives it character. I would definitely like to come back at some point and just do some, you know, extra shooting just to show it off a little bit in here. It's raining today. We're getting the piece of the hurricane that hit Florida, so it's throwing down today. So we wasn't able to do anything outside from the outside coming in or anything, but it is beautiful in here, and we thank you for welcoming us to the space, man.
Of course. Yeah. Honor to have y'all.
Yeah. So getting started on House of Commons, how long has this been an idea for you?
Yeah. So let me start with saying House of Commons has been open to the public for almost 14 months. Mm-hmm. I have been in the picture for 3 years, and the reality is like Ben, the building owner, had a vision for a bourbon bar to be here prior to COVID. So he bought the space prior to COVID. He had this vision for Airbnbs, which there are stellar, stunning Airbnbs
Above
and behind.
That's
so
awesome.
There's a 1-bedroom on the back end. There's a 5-bedroom on the second floor. The entire second floor is a 5-bedroom unit. Sleeps 10 people. And then the third floor is a 6-bedroom unit that sleeps up to 16.
Wow.
And I got to tell you, you think this space is gorgeous, your jaw will drop when you see these Airbnbs. They're just insane.
I mean, just from the street view, because they got the wide open windows up there, and just seeing like bits and pieces of up there, it's insane. This whole building has just been transformed.
It really has. Ben did a phenomenal job. But he bought it prior to COVID with the intent of creating a space with Airbnbs that were luxury Airbnbs for guests to stay in, and had this vision. He said, bourbon poles out here. We're in downtown Frankfort. You know, there's 5 distilleries at the fingertips around here that are just so close, you know, just within a few miles, that he had this vision for there to be a bourbon bar here.
It only makes sense.
It only makes sense. So he had this vision for what he wanted. That House Commons was this whole concept, right? So he's got this Airbnb on the back end. It's called Neutral Ground. Airbnb on the second floor is called Senate Floor, and then third floor is called Parliament Penthouse. So it just made sense that House of Commons was kind of the hub. It was the entryway to the public. It was like it could be an entrance for Airbnb guests.
Right.
It was kind of home base, and so he had this vision for it. Me and my wife moved here in June of 2021 to help start a church plant. So I had been working at a luxury resort in East Tennessee called Blackberry Farm for 8 years. Loved it. I thought I was going to work there the rest of my life, but man, God had other plans. And so me and my wife found out that my best friend from college, he and his wife were moving from Charleston, South Carolina to start a church here in Frankfurt. And so they call us, they tell us that. Me and my wife are like, hey, we need to pray about this. So we did. And man, God led us to pick up. I put in my 2 months notice with work. We packed up our 2 little girls. We moved up here, parked the U-Haul in our rental that we had found out 2 days prior we were going to be living in. Parked the U-Haul. I went to a job interview, was offered a job on the spot, and here we were. We were in our new home.
Yeah.
And we had been here for probably 3 months at the time, Jordan, and one of our friends from church was like, hey, my uncle is renovating a building downtown Frankfurt, and he wants to have a bourbon bar in it. He's like, Dave, I know you're big into bourbon, from where you were introduced to it through the luxury resort you were working at. You should meet him. So I did. I set up a coffee meeting with Ben. I'm sitting with him, and I'm like, look, dude, I've seen your work. It's like, I know it's good. Frankfurt's primed and ready for this. I was like, Frankfurt needs this. I was like, look, I know some bourbon things. Like, I'm in your corner. Like, I just want to cheer you on. How can I help? And he was like, look, dude, I'm looking for bar owners. And I was like, oh, cool. I'll keep an eye out. Like, I don't know anybody right offhand. But I'll keep an eye out. And he was like, dude, you seem to really know bourbon. Like, you obviously have run multiple operations and you know hospitality. Like, why would it not be you? And I was like, oh. I was like, I guess it could be me, but he was like, look, dude, I know what I want the space to look like. He's like, I need bar owners that know their stuff. And he was like, I'd love it if you consider it. So me and my wife, again, we pray about it, right? We've been here for 3 months. I'm working at a factory. Yeah. And he's like, think about it. So we did. We thought about it, and it's like, yeah, we've always wanted our own business. Let's start our own business. Yeah. And so it's been a wild ride. It's been so cool to show hospitality to people. It's been so cool and humbling to connect with people. You know, people talk all the time like, you all are just so informed, you're so educated, you're so knowledgeable. And we have a great team. And we have a team that really knows their stuff. But it's wild when you encounter the people that are like the GOATs, you know? Yeah. Like the Freddie Johnsons of the world, and the Nick Quintes of the world, and the Steve Nallys of the world. I mean, Mark Carter has been in here. And it's like when these guys come in and are like here, it's just like, whoa, like I never thought I'd get to meet you in my lifetime.
No less in my business.
No less in my business, you know? Right. And we're talking about the same things. And it's just been such a humbling experience. It's been so cool for us to connect and to create this space where people, whether they're bourbon or whiskey novices, or whether they're like
full-blown
top of their field, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, Steve Nally was in here like 5 months ago doing a meet and greet with our guests for free. And he's been in the industry for 51 years. That's insane. Like, that's insane. You just can't make this stuff up.
That's bringing a huge part of the culture here.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And it's just, I don't know. It feels like we've been blessed with a space that I can tell you right now, I didn't do anything to deserve this, to earn it. You know, it was like we were blessed with this space, and we were blessed to get to run alongside of people in this race, and to be a part of this growth, like you were talking about, this new growth of businesses in Frankfurt. We've been blessed to be a part of this freshman class of businesses in Frankfurt that are doing a lot of really cool things. And this is what I can't impress on people enough here in downtown Frankfort, what it's like, because so many people are like, oh, like that's your competitor. I'm like, no. We don't have competitors here in Frankfort.
No.
So we're all in it together, right?
Gotta be, yeah.
We're all trying to showcase the gym that is Frankfort and showcase people how cool Frankfort is as a town. We're all just trying to show some hospitality. We're all just trying to do cool things and meet cool people. And it's so cool, the people that I get to do that alongside of. You know, the guys over here in Engine House Coffee, getting to do that alongside them, getting to do it alongside Porter's over here, getting to do it alongside and watching the growth of Hauser. And it's been really
I forgot
cool.
about that down there. Yeah, that's awesome.
Getting to watch, you know, the growth of downtown and watch these new businesses kind of come in and seeing for the first time tourism that wasn't here before.
100%. I think you guys are bringing just something new to the game. Like, it's old school feel, new school vibe at the same time. Like, so it's like the best of both worlds.
100%.
Like, even from the look of this place, like, you know, has a very classic look about it.
Yeah.
But everything's just new and feels new, feels good. And I think every business that's coming downtown has their own character that they're bringing.
100%.
And I think we definitely needed. So would you consider this more of a historic bar? Like, what would you call House of Commons if you wanted to wrap it up in a short term?
Yeah. So I think we really kind of lean on Bourbon Library more than anything.
Okay.
So I say that this bourbon, just like the city of Frankfort, has a history with bourbon. So I don't think it's fair to call it a historic bar, because while this building was built in 1888, it wasn't functioning to our knowledge as a bar prior to. Whereas you have places like Talbot Tavern in Bardstown that have functioned as a bar for generations.
Got you.
The reality is that Ben had this vision to breathe new life into a historic space. And I love the fact that you pointed out this exposed brick over here, because for him, that was a way to give a nod to what was once before here. Yeah, because if you're local, which you would know this, but a lot of people that aren't from here have no idea that this building was nothing for over 20 years.
I mean, I walked past it for years, and it's just been just another building, empty building in Frankfurt.
Yeah.
So I think post-COVID, I've seen a lot of renovation, and during COVID, there's just been a lot of people coming in with new ideas, grabbing these older buildings, restoring them, and bringing life back to them.
100%.
And you guys have definitely did that with this. When you were first talking about, like, you were up and moving, and you had to put in your 2 weeks and everything.
Yeah.
You said you thought that you would never leave that job.
Right.
How did you feel when you just finally made that decision?
Oh man, that's a great question. You know, this ties largely into my faith, because the reality was, like, I knew my place in that job. I knew my trajectory. I knew where my career was headed with that company, and I had security in that company. I knew as long as I continued to work hard, I continued to perform, I continued to do well, I knew that I was, like,
stable.
I was stable, and I was working my way up. I had a next step on the ladder, if you will, that I had my sights set on. And there was a lot of great amenities. There was a lot of great things. They were really good to their people. But the thought and the idea of leaving that to go to something that I hadn't done anything other than for 8 years was unsettling. It was kind of unnerving, and it wasn't something I was passionate about, you know? As excited as I was about the prospect of working in the bourbon industry, the kind of the ironic and the funny part about that, Jordan, is at the time I thought I was going to work at a distillery, like just be like a frontline worker at the distillery, and lo and behold,
Just getting into the bourbon game, however.
just working in a rick house or
Yeah.
working in a gift shop, or not selling the distillery's bourbons. It's like, it's funny because now we're like representing distilleries, and never in a million years that I envisioned that would get to be my career, that would be my life. But it was very unsettling at the thought of leaving that security. And it was like I said during that time a lot, that there was a freedom in the free fall, because it was like I was placing my faith. Like, I mean, when I say we moved here, like we put a date. My wife and I felt very confident that there was a date, that we need to move on this date, and we didn't have our rental property locked in until literally 2 days before. I didn't have a job, and my wife did not have a job. Like,
So y'all really took the leap of faith, hoping the net would appear.
100%.
Yeah.
And trusted, and the Lord provided, and He's provided every time since.
Yeah.
It was like, we are here because someone from our church introduced us. And it's like, the reality is like, we stepped out in faith, and it didn't feel cool at times, It's just kind of like.
Has that went down over time? Like,
I mean, it has, but the reality is like, there's nothing secure about running a business. It's like, that well. It's like,
no, there's not.
it's just leap after faith after leap after faith after leap after faith. Like, mine. You got to dot your I's and cross your T's, and you got to make sure you're wise and you're making wise decisions, and you're getting counsel and doing things appropriately. But if you're really if you're walking in faith, I believe, you're going to be making leaps of faith. Now,
100%.
They don't involve packing up my kids and moving states away without a job or a house. But the reality is, it's
part
like,
of it.
Time after time, whether it's our involvement with the church or our involvement downtown, or whether it's investing, sometimes it's investing in a person that
100%.
when you feel like you literally don't have the capacity to take care of yourself, like you don't have the mental bandwidth to take care of yourself, and it's investing in someone else. Or maybe it's like, hey, this right now, I've got a vision for, like, right now I have some ideas and some visions for where we're going to go in phase 2 and 3 of the business, that like I couldn't begin to wrap my mind around what that's going to look like and how we're going to pull that off. But I feel very confident that that's like,
Those are the next steps.
that's the next step, and it's like, and then too, like, the other thing is, like, running a bar and being a believer a lot of times seem like a conflict of interest to people.
Yeah, I was going to ask that.
Yeah, and so a lot of times it feels like a conflict of interest to people, and it's uncomfortable. But the reality is like, me and my wife set out that it's like, the Lord put us in this position to be able to operate this business. Yeah. Without Him, we would not be here. Right. So for us to say that He doesn't have a hand in it is furthest from the truth.
Right.
Because He's the reason there was
that
a
you
beginning.
even got into this.
Yeah. He was the beginning of it.
Yeah.
So how does He not have a hand in it?
Yeah.
And so the reality is like, bro, I've prayed over people in here, and people have prayed over me.
That's fire.
And
you're creating the energy that you want this to be. Like 100%. It doesn't have to be when you think of bar, you think of people just getting tore up and just, I think now people are getting more into like, I don't have to get tore up to go have a drink. Sure. I can just have a drink.
Sure.
And building the relationship with you and what you're doing, like, that's awesome, man.
And I don't say that to say like, oh, if somebody comes in the bar, I'm going to be like waiting to pray over them at the bar.
Right.
Or that I'm going to hand you a tract, or I'm going to, read Bible verse. I just say that to say, like, people a lot of times think that unfortunately faith and alcohol like are separates. And they don't talk about faith, and have alcohol. And so for people to envision a bar owner being a believer and being a part of a church plant is just mind-boggling to them on both ends of the spectrum. Some of the biggest judgment I get is from people that aren't even believers.
Yeah.
It's like, they're like, how do you reconcile
Yeah.
that? How do you compute that? And I'm like, well, are you a believer? And they're like, no. I'm like, why do you?
Your faith brought you to this exact
Right.
moment. At
Right.
this,
Right.
to this building.
Right.
You, like you said, you got the opportunity through the church.
Right.
So, like you said, to say that it's not going hand in hand,
Right.
is the farthest from the truth. So,
100%. And it's a part of who we are. So I say that to say, like, the Lord brought us here. He has used it. God has brought people to us and has changed their lives through the bar and through the church.
yeah,
And that's, we're just trying to be obedient, you know? And it's like, the reality is to think that people's lives are changed today because the Lord put us here, and because of this, God put them in our life, and because they were in our life, then they came to our church, and since they started coming to the church, then the Lord used church to change their life.
That's fine.
And it's just cool. It's like, wow, pinch me.
that's a
just
beautiful
wild.
domino effect right there.
It is. And to go back kind of what you were saying, Jordan, the reality is like, we really do, you know, I'm not saying like people aren't going to have a couple drinks while they're in here, but we do really focus on, and our specialty is an appreciation for the Spirit.
Yeah.
And that's where I think we have a respect for the craft. And that's where I think a lot of people do get it twisted. When they hear bar, when I tell people, oh, like,
On a bar.
we moved here to go to start a church, but we own a bar, they envision a dive bar where
Yeah.
people are just getting schmammered all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And it's like, we really focus on the experience of people connecting with the Spirit, whether it's a cocktail or whether it's a bourbon, or, you know, another spirit. We focus on Kentucky distilleries and their product and appreciation for the product. So we really specialize in flights, and we'll build custom flights based on people's palates.
Okay.
And so it's like, you tell me what you like or don't like, and any proof considerations. And one of the most important things is what budget are you looking to spend, because we're
Yeah.
not trying to upsell people here.
Yeah.
And then we pull things that you've never seen before, hopefully. Surely you have hopefully never tasted.
For sure.
And then put them in front of you, and you hopefully have new favorites that you didn't walk in here with.
This today, like I told you, I haven't had a drink since April, and it is September, the end of September. So I thought me having a drink today is gonna be very hard on my body in general. This is one of the smoothest that I've had right here. So you want to talk about this a little bit?
I would love to talk about this one.
Yeah.
So this is from our friends, Jay Mattingly. They're here in our backyard, really close to Buffalo Trace, actually. I talk about Jay Mattingly a lot because a lot of people have this predisposition or prejudice toward product that isn't distilled at that location. The reality is the majority of the game these days is stuff that's NDP, non-distiller produced. There's a ton of product in the market that's either sourced and blended, sourced and bottled as a single barrel. It could be aged somewhere else or whatever. But there's a true craft to what Jay Mattingly's doing. They have a double staving process where they break down staves, they char them, and then they put them in the barrel of bourbon, adding a lot more oak character to the bourbon. So you may have a bourbon that in this case is right around 5 years old, that doesn't look like or taste like a 5-year-old bourbon. Now, why does it not taste like a 5-year-old bourbon? Because it's been double staved, and it adds a lot more of that oak character
Flavor.
a lot more of the oak flavor. It tastes like something that's been aged a lot longer.
Definitely does.
Because of that. Now, because those guys are craft and they are, you know, a smaller outfit, they have a lot of opportunities to do things that the big guys, the big boys, do not. So they've worked with me. This is one of my new favorites right now. They worked with me to produce a single barrel at 2 different proofs. So this one was 104 proof, And then we did another one at 128 proof that came from the same single barrel.
That's wild. That's a wild process. Like, I don't even know if I've heard that before today.
And I've never heard of that before, Jordan. The reality is people aren't doing that. You know, like
you get a single barrel, they're just like, all right, let's just bottle it up, you know?
Yeah. You just offer a single barrel. But the guys over at J. Mattingly kind of think about things the same way we do, in the sense that they're looking at it from a scientific standpoint. They have an appreciation for the craft. They are truly crafting a product. And so I pitched this idea to them, and they're like, we've never done that before. And I was like, cool, me either.
Let's try it.
Let's try it. And we did it, and I love the outcome.
Yeah.
So this one appeals to a product, or it appeals to a group of people that our 128 proof does not, and vice versa. But
I feel like if you like, just based off my palate, I feel like if you like a lighter bourbon with flavor, this is gonna be it right here. I didn't expect it to not. You think of a young bourbon, you think of very just alcohol.
Yeah.
You know, just the smell and taste of alcohol. With this, you get multiple different notes, and like you said, when you warm it up a little bit too, just keeping it in your hand, some of those smells come through a little bit more, some of the sweeter smells and stuff like that. So
100%. I love the flavors on this. I love what J. Mattingly's doing. They offer some cool experiences over there. You can go and do a blending experience with them, where you can blend your own bottle. You can do a single barrel. They don't just work with bourbon, they work with rye and light whiskeys too. But you know, this is a product that I love put in front of our guests. They worked with us because of the way they do things, the way that you can go in and do a single barrel yourself. That allowed a small new business startup like ourselves to do a single barrel with them. And we're really blessed to be able to put their product on our shelf, and I'm glad to represent them, because what they're starting with is good product. What they're crafting with their double staving process and with how they age stuff, it is an even tastier process.
Yeah,
so,
and it's different. It's different.
It is
like
different.
Everybody has their thing, you know, and Jeff the Creed uses the blood corn.
Yep.
You know, and then like with the double stave that they're doing, and then Buffalo Trace has their own stuff that they do, and I think just like the bars we were talking about, everybody has different characteristics and different things that they bring to the table to make this one big community that we're all having a love for the same product, but everybody's doing something different with their product. So it brings a lot of different characters into it. It makes it inclusive for everybody's palate, which is, I think, is a big thing with bourbon. I feel like for a long time, you were telling me earlier, like people in, what'd you say, like the 90s, wasn't really big into bourbon like that at the time, or what?
You know,
what
the reality, Jordan, is it spans 70s, 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. We call that the glut era because people were accustomed to their bourbon a lot of times in cocktails. There was this resurgence of clear spirits, vodkas and gins became very popular, and whiskey became less popular, and the demand went down. And so our local distilleries really felt the crunch. Yeah. And some of them closed for forever.
Yeah,
you know?
No, for sure.
And
quite a few of them in the 90s, I feel like, or got bought out, and you know.
Yeah. So, you know, the good news is with this giant wave, or what I call the bourbon boom, with this bourbon boom, we've seen new life breathed into some of those distilleries. Like Old Taylor became Castle and Key.
Yep.
Glens Creek set up residence in what was once Old Crow Distillery. James Pepper Distillery reopened, and they're releasing the James Pepper and Old Pepper products out of that distillery.
That's fire.
You know, Beam bought a portion of Old Crow, and they bought Old Grandad and breathed new life into those buildings. So the reality is it's like all kind of been repurposed at this point, but there were once distilleries that were producing products that are no longer producing under that name because they closed their doors, you know.
Now, do you have bourbons here that are from the 90s or anything like that?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. So our oldest bottle at the moment was bottled in 1959.
That is insane.
Yes. And something that I was really, or have been really passionate about is having bourbons that are representative of distilleries that are no longer producing. So that 1959 is a very old Fitzgerald that was produced out of Stitzel-Weller, which is now owned by Diageo, and they have some immersive experiences there, but they're not producing product out of there like they.
You'll never get that bottle again.
Right.
Like that is a once in a lifetime pour right there.
100%. And so another, we have Old Crow, you know, produced at Old Crow. We've had James Pepper produced from the old distillery prior to it closing. So connecting with with new spirits is what we're really passionate about. And for those that are so inclined, connecting with distilleries that no longer exist, I think is just an awesome experience.
That is a cool like balance of the two right there between the new and the old. So is there any old bottles that you wish that you couldn't get a hold of anymore?
Yes.
That you've personally tasted?
Let's see. I've not tasted this one,
Okay.
but I do have my sights set on at some point getting my hands on a Prohibition era Old Taylor.
Yeah.
So I have had Prohibition era Old Stag. So 15-year, 100-proof distillate that came out of Old Stag Distillery I've had.
That's wild.
It was bottled in 32, distilled in 1917.
Wow. That is insane right there.
And that was a trip, man. It was a real experience. But
Where'd you have that?
I had a friend that had a bottle.
Yeah.
And I've also had a good friend of mine was very generous and bought me a sample of some Hermitage. Do you know about Hermitage?
No.
Okay. So Hermitage was a pre-Prohibition distillery here in South Frankfort, just over the river. So
I have heard of that. Yeah.
it was over off Paul Sawyer Drive, in between Paul Sawyer Drive and Hermitage Drive, in between 3rd and 4th Street. Because me and my wife live in a house that was built in 1888 for the master distiller of Hermitage.
Wow.
A friend of mine knew that the Hermitage distillery was really important to me, and that I was really kind of infatuated with the Hermitage distillery story. And so last repeal day last year they had a bottle of Hermitage that was Prohibition era. It was 100 years old, and they let me taste it, and it was
An experience to say the least.
unreal.
Yeah.
Easily top 5 bourbons I've ever had. It was so good.
So do you feel like there is a different play on flavors back then compared to now?
100%.
Yeah.
There's so much, and there's people don't realize. People think, honestly, I get a lot of people that think that the name and the recipe, the mash bill, whatever, travel with the name. So that if you've had Old Fitzgerald today, it's the same Old Fitzgerald that was produced by Stitzel-Weller. And most people don't even know Old Fitzgerald dates back to the early 1900s and was actually a product that was produced in Franklin County.
I did not know
They
that.
know about the Old Fitzgerald that was produced by Stitzel-Weller in Louisville. But they think that the mash bill or the specs of that bourbon travel with the name, and they don't. Like, people buy a name
Yeah.
just you know, like any other brand can be bought out. And it doesn't mean that the standards
It's going to stay
are going to
the same.
stay constant, right?
Yep.
So with the old product, I think that there's a lot of things that influence the difference in taste. I think most notably, or one of the most easily noted products, is old growth timber. So old growth timber were these old trees that America was harvesting up until the 1980s, and then they started harvesting new growth timber. Well, new growth timber Doesn't have as much of a sap content between the growth lines. It's not as dense, and it is much more porous. And so
it can go in and come.
yeah. So the wood would impart different flavors onto the bourbon as it was aged in the barrels. I think the fact that staving was probably not as quick.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to say. A lot of people say that they rush staving. People today, it's more scientific. They really know what they're doing with staving. I think that they can do things a lot more efficiently than they did back in the day.
It's not that it's rushed. It's just things have changed.
Things have changed,
and we have learned a little bit more. Yeah.
Yeah, it's different. But microwave food don't taste like smoker food.
That is real. Yes, sir.
You know, the reality is like we can do things more efficiently today to produce flavors, and it's not that they're not doing a great job with the cooperage and the staving, because they are, and they're much more efficient with it, I think, than they were back then. The products today are much more consistent.
Yeah.
But I think that they probably aged the staves a lot longer. I think that the grains and the corn were probably much more natural, probably much more. Again, we have stricter standards for what food
Today.
we use for commercial product than we did back then. But back then they weren't churning out as much product. Right? And so I think that they were probably working with more local farms, and they were working with probably a higher quality of grain than
And
what
they probably
we do.
just thought, like you said, if it's not broke, don't fix it type thing. So for the longest, they're staving, and they thought, let's just keep it in here as long as possible. And I'm sure it worked. It works. It's something that works. So like, it took some people that I feel like was like, let's see if we can not rush this process, but evolve this process a little bit more.
Well, and I think part of that is necessity too, is as the grain industry has changed and as the wood and lumber industry has changed, like the distilleries kind of have their hands full because they're trying to meet demand with products that are not as high quality across the board. So the grain and the lumber across America, around, I don't know the last time you went to Home Depot or Lowe's, but if you go to Home Depot or Lowe's,
crazy,
and you look at the lumber post-COVID and pre-COVID, the quality took a downturn, right?
It took a downturn and the price
and the price went up. Quality went down and price went up. And so I really feel for these distilleries and these cooperages, because they're producing quality barrels and quality products. And people complain about inflation in the whiskey industry, but the reality is, I don't know about you, but I don't see as much of a drastic change in the whiskey industry as I have, say, in the food industry.
100%.
And so, I feel like
the price might have changed a little bit post-COVID because I think, like you said, the bourbon boom. So supply and demand goes into that as well. So
100%.
There's a lot higher demand now for bourbon than there has been in the last probably 10 years, honestly.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
I think that was kind of like, we really started to see a boom probably 10 years ago. That was kind of the onset of it. But, I do feel for these whiskey industries because I feel like they're doing a great job of creating quality and consistent products.
And making sure it's a fair price.
And making sure it's a fair price for what we're getting.
Yeah.
And I hope to continue to see, and that's part of the reason why we're a Kentucky-only distillery. Don't get me wrong, I'm from Tennessee, and I love some of the whiskey that's coming out of Tennessee. I think Indiana's putting out great product. There's some great
I have one from Texas that was like I'm biased to Kentucky, so but it was good. It was good.
There's some Texas whiskey coming out. There's Colorado.
Yeah.
There's some stuff coming out of Missouri and down in Alabama and
I even
Mississippi
seen one
that's
in New
great.
York.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was one in New
There's
York.
great whiskey all over the nation. Now, to be a bourbon, it's got to come from the United States, but there's some great bourbon that's being put out from distilleries all over. But the reality is like, for us, we're not trying to say Kentucky bourbon's better. What we are trying to say is like, hey, what I am trying to say is, because we are tied and offer vintage pours, the story of the dark ages of bourbon and the glut era is all too familiar.
Yeah.
And so it's like, we want to see those dollars, those tourism dollars, those dollars that are purchasing product, whiskey here from Kentucky, or merchandise themed around, think about, you don't go through Buffalo Trace's gift shop and only come out with one bottle.
No.
You got the shirt, you got the hat, you got the glasses.
Cooking stuff and everything.
You got everything, right?
Yeah, I got the glass holders, I got glasses,
Hey, that tour was free for a reason.
Yeah.
You're walking out of there.
Yeah.
You
wait till the end.
Yeah, you exit through the gift shop, and you now have outfitted your whole family with some great looking Buffalo Trace stuff, like my fancy socks here, from the Disneyland of bourbon. And they do a phenomenal job. It's like world-class experience, I feel like, over there.
Making sure that dollars
staying here
in Kentucky, though.
Yep.
And making sure that it goes back to the people that put in all this hard work and effort on these bottles, because you have a master distiller, but there's many people who are part of this process
100%.
and making sure that this dollar can stay in this area for a little bit before it leaves the state.
100%. It takes a village to raise a barrel, and these guys.
I like that.
These guys they're getting it done, and they're not only our neighbors, they're our friends, they're our family.
We know them.
We know them, and I don't know about you, but like, that's part of my story. Is my great grandmother was born at the distillery. I had a great grandfather that worked at James Pepper in the early 1900s for years and years. I've had family members, great uncles, great cousins that have worked at Buffalo Trace throughout the years. I've got ID badges where they work there that I hold on to and show people here to help connect people to the spirit,
the history, and
the history. And it's like, man, this is our history. This is our lineage. This is our family and our friends. And it's like, this is our economy. And so it's like, that's why we're so passionate about it here, is connecting to it. Is like, every one of us have a story, and it's like, for other people, it's like they're connecting and they're creating their own stories. But we all have like kind of our own story, our own testimony, if you will, with how we're connected to the industry. And so we want to keep propagating the industry here in Kentucky, for sure.
I know, looked like the lights flickered there for a second. I know earlier we were just talking about flipping the dollar, keeping it here, and the environment that you're trying to create here. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I took in was how I feel like the conversation that we're having right now is not just for the podcast. I feel like this is the conversation that you try to have with everybody, with the experience that you try to create. And I feel like you said that you want to make sure that they leave with a little piece of knowledge when they leave here. It's not just like, oh, we're going to go in, have a drink, and go to the next bar. It's like, well, I'm going to go in, get a piece of knowledge, have a drink. You can try something new every time you come in here.
Sure.
And catch a new piece of knowledge, new piece of vibe. And your team as well, you said, is very educated.
They are. And don't get me wrong, like, please don't, I don't want people to feel like if they come in the door, we're going to try to spoon feed them knowledge. We get all kinds of people that come in, celebrate a birthday. They come in for a date night. And we are so honored that people choose us. Of all these awesome places that they could go in downtown Frankfort or in central Kentucky, we get people that drive from Lexington or Louisville. We are so honored that people choose to spend their time with us, whether it's time for them to connect and get away on a date night or just celebrate someone's birthday, or whether they're coming in and they're trying to connect with this, they're trying to connect with our team, and they're trying to get pieces of history. We want to create a space that's conducive to that. That's why there's no TVs in here. And it's like, you were kind of mentioning that earlier, Jordan, is like, it's kind of a nod to the past. Part of that is because of a lack of technology, and that's because we want people to connect with one another.
Yeah.
We want them to
Have
connect
conversation.
with history. We
Yeah.
want them to have a conversation. We want them, you know, I've got these books over here, late 1800s, early 1900s books. People are like, oh, are those just for show? And I'm like, I mean,
I was actually wondering that.
they look cool.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I don't care if somebody takes a book off the wall. It's like connect with the history.
Yeah.
Or like the pieces. It's funny because I have these like little knickknacks. I keep them in a recycled box. People are like, don't you need like a showcase for that? And I'm like, why? And they're like, to protect them. I'm like, if it's so protected that you can't connect with it, then it's fallen short of its purpose. My purpose for these items, for these knickknacks, these historical pieces, family members' ID badges, and a bottle top that I found in my yard that belonged to the previous homeowner that was a master distiller at the distillery back in 1888. Like, these things are things for you to connect with and for you to see and to touch and to feel. And it's like, if you are looking for a place to connect with bourbon and bourbon history, we want to provide a place for that.
I think that's awesome. I'm a little bit all over the place right now because there's so much to talk about in here, from tasting to environment and everything. Kind of go over why you chose. Do you choose individually all these bottles, like you, or do you have a team of people, or is it just you?
Yeah, I've curated all the bottles we have. So our first and foremost goal was to represent every Kentucky distillery, not every Kentucky brand, because as we talked about before, there's a lot of non-distiller produced out there where people have sourced whiskey from a major distillery and blended it, or maybe they've just sourced it and bottled it, put a name and a story to it. But our goal is to represent every Kentucky distillery. So we try to have at least one expression from each distillery. And then on top of that, I try to source the stuff that is things people are looking to try. Maybe they have a bottle of it and they haven't opened it, or maybe they have opportunity to buy a bottle at their local liquor store,
But
and they're thinking about splurging, but they want to taste it before they buy it. Because it's like, the reality is that like I was big into hunting bourbon before I opened a bar. You know, I know that community. I know what that's like. I know what it's like to try to find, and the thrill of the chase for these spirits.
You were on the other side of it.
I was on the other side of it.
Yeah.
Now I'm not now.
Yeah.
You know, I'm busy running a business, but I know what it's like, and I know a lot of times what these guys are looking for, and so we try to provide that, and so we do half-ounce pours of everything we have, because I want people to be able to have the opportunity to try it without having to fork over a ton of money in order to just taste something, to decide whether they want to open that bottle, right?
Yeah.
And then the other thing that we really try to do, and I'm really passionate about, is creating an assortment of stuff that does two things. I want one that is going to introduce new products, products that aren't familiar to people, or maybe new expressions of products, so that people can expand their knowledge. Maybe you've never had craft distilleries. Maybe you've never had a bourbon made on pot still. Maybe you've never had a bourbon that's finished. And so we try to have an assortment that's broad enough that we can provide different forms of whiskey. And then the other thing, the second one, is for you to be able to thread a flight. So a lot of our flights are custom, like we build it for you based on your palate. But say you came in and you're like, hey, I really like Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. Well, I'd be like, great, I've got multiple expressions of Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. Let me pull together an Elijah Craig Barrel Proof flight. I have 4 different versions of that product, and I could build you a flight of Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, and you could taste 4 different batches side by side and taste how different they are.
Now, I really like what you showed me earlier too, the 3 bottles.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's
all the same exact mash bill, same type of wood for. I mean,
it's same mash bill, aged in the same oak. It's
same time, same amount of time as well.
same amount of time, and all proofed at the same proof. So, but aged across 3 different locations in central Kentucky that are only an hour apart from each other. But the reality is they all impart their own flavor and they all taste different.
You can taste that location.
It tastes different. Yeah, that's Hardin's Creek Kentucky series.
Hardin's Creek, Kentucky series.
I love that product. That's a beam offering, and I think they knocked it out of the park. Because the reality is like people know small batch, they know single barrel, they know this distillery, that distillery, but they don't get the opportunity to go on a granular level and understand what makes those products different. You know, we don't have enough products on the market, in my opinion, that tell us exactly what rick that came from, where that rick was located. So much of the product today, we're trusting these guys to just blend it together to put an expression out. And they do. And they do a phenomenal job of putting a product out there that tastes like a certain taste profile, certain expression, and they're pulling from different areas and from different ricks and all that kind of stuff. But to be able to go on a granular level with people and help them to understand where that barrel was aged or how that barrel was aged, how that imparts a flavor, is kind of something that we're really passionate about and we're looking to pursue in the near future.
That's awesome.
So that people can connect with that and learn.
I've had Buffalo Trace was like one of my go-to bottles for a long time, and just because, like, pre-COVID, I mean, you could get it pretty much anywhere, you know. Right. And I had a Frankfurt Bourbon Society pick of Buffalo Trace, and this is where I realized, like, it was aged in the same warehouse, just a different area, and that different area brought a whole different flavor profile. Yeah. Like if it's higher in the warehouse or lower in the warehouse. I didn't realize that a product like Buffalo Trace could taste different from another bottle for the longest. And until I had that Frankfurt Bourbon Society pick of it. And then I was like, this is not Buffalo Trace. And they're like, yeah. Mm-hmm. And because it just had more caramel notes, a lot sweeter for some reason. Yeah. And they were like, yeah, it just all depends on where the warehouse is. So seeing that, I don't know if it was an experiment for them or what they were doing with it, but seeing that project right there and seeing that they're bottling for that, I think that's awesome. Is there any, if somebody was to come in and they didn't know bourbon at all, and you wanted to get them set up on a starter flight, something that's going to open up their eyes, what would be a good starter flight that you think you would start with somebody?
That's a great question. So it's largely dependent upon what that person drinks. And I don't mean like what they drink bourbon wise, because a lot of people that are starter flights or what I call onboarding flights, they're not drinking bourbon already. So it's about us understanding what they do drink. Are they drinking wine? Are they drinking gin? Are they drinking rum, tequila?
Let's say me, like I was a tequila drinker before, and tequila drinker, and then I like bitter wines. Okay.
So knowing someone's got that kind of palate, they're probably used to spirits that are lower proof, because most tequilas are 86 proof or lower. Most of them are 80 proof. They're going to be okay with something that's a little sweeter. And then bitter wines, you're going to be okay with things that are probably a little more earthy and a little more tannic. So I wouldn't need to stray away from those earthy or tannic bourbons that a lot of times I would stray away from for somebody that is new to bourbon. And then I would lean into the sweeter palate, but I'm looking for stuff that's probably 90 proof or low. And I wouldn't stray away from stuff that's finished. Okay. So like we have some tequila finished whiskey. So like bourbon that was finished in tequila barrels. We have some that are finished. Wow. Yeah. We have some that are finished in like port barrels. So like an Angel's Envy or like a Mary Dowling tequila finish. And then I would put out a couple low proof bourbons that are really easy drinking, not super astringent. Jim Beam has a Sunshine release right now that's a limited time offering that I've been really impressed with. It's really easy drinking, really light and delicate. I would maybe even go to some of the Four Roses has some kind of floral, delicate, sweet expressions as well.
Okay.
And then Old Fitzgerald Prime, I think, is a great kind of starter bourbon that's a little more oaky and a little bit more tannic, but not as, say, spicy as, say, like a Basil Hayden.
So it's getting more into like the oaky, older flavors or something like that?
Yeah, it could be just where they pull it from, pulls more oak. So like a good example is Benchmark Top Floor. They pull that from the 3rd and 4th floor of the rick houses. So it's got a smoky oakiness to it, even though it's only 86 proof.
Wow.
And so it's interesting because it's a low proof offering that's really great for people that don't want the higher proof burn.
Yeah.
But it's got a great amount of oak and smoke characteristic, almost kind of like Woodford has, but in a package that's much more easy drinking and might add much more affordable than, say, like a Woodford bottle.
Okay.
That's a bottle that you should spend less than $25 on the shelf.
That's fire. That's fire. So you guys have a variety of bourbons here. You guys have things from price range to flavor, just a little bit of everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Do you guys have any future plans for any events or anything like that?
We occasionally do events where people like rent out the space for events.
Okay.
We did a New Year's Eve event last year that was a lot of fun. But what I really am looking to kind of lean into more as time goes on is I would love to, in 2025, start doing some kind of classes.
Oh, man.
Where
that would be insane.
Yeah, whether it's, once a month or once every 2 months, doing a specialized flight, limited ticket number, where it's set apart time, where we're going to camp out and we're going to focus on that flight and that distillery, and we're going to talk about the history of that distillery, the history of those expressions, and most of those will probably be relatively straightforward bourbons that are not that hard to get.
Yeah.
But what I would really love to get to down the road is really highly sought after, really rare, like Prohibition era stuff. Because the last thing you want to do as a business owner and as someone that respects the craft and the product is open it and then pour it over the course of a year and a half. And then by the time you get to those last pours, it's not the best representation of the product.
Got you.
I'm not going to charge people for that product, and I don't want people to taste that product that's not the best representation. So your best bet is to open it and pour it at one event.
At one time.
At one time.
That way everybody gets an equal taste of it.
Yeah. It's a consistent product from start to finish. And then you can really kind of hone in. As much as we try and as much as we love to talk about history with guests that are here, people have dinner plans, you know, or people are coming in to grab a drink and then they're meeting up with friends. Most people don't come into the bar with the anticipation of spending an hour and a half to 2 hours here talking to us, Yeah. It's like we're ready to go there with people when they want
ready.
to.
Yeah.
But that's not most people's intention. And so doing a class where it's like, hey, this is a set apart time where it's only open to the people that are doing the class, and we're really honing in on one distillery, one series of expressions from that distillery, I think would really kind of make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And if the demand is there, like, I think it could be a great opportunity for guests to kind of go next level that are interested in
Next
learning
level
more.
drinking experience, not just, it goes beyond just the history, and then you're getting into your personal palate, you're learning your palate a little bit more, so when you leave, you know a little bit more of what you like and what you're looking for in your bourbons and stuff. I think that's awesome right there. And I don't think anybody does that around this area either.
Not outside the distilleries. And the reality is like, I tell people all the time, like, because we are so small and we pour half ounce, we have the opportunity to pour a lot of times more than the distilleries themselves.
So you guys do half ounce.
We do half ounce pours.
That's fire.
Of any of our whiskeys.
I like the half ounce pour.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's great for an appreciation of the product, to taste the product. If you want to try a few things, kind of like my friends over at Porter's. The biggest thing I love about the self-serve is I can pour an ounce.
Yeah, you don't have to get a whole
Yeah.
tall boy of anything over there. I love Porter's for that. I thought that was when I first heard it, I was like, a self-serving beer place. That could be bad. That could be bad.
It's great.
But
I love it.
it's actually the complete opposite. You get to taste a couple more things, and you end up not drinking as much because you've tasted 4 or 5 different things. So
100%.
the body can only cleanse out so much alcohol per hour. So I think the half ounce pours are
great.
definitely smart for the body, and if you're wanting to enjoy your night all night, you know.
Yeah. And if you're looking to, I mean, we oftentimes get people that stop in, they engage with us, they engage with the spirit, they start, appreciating what we have to offer, and then they go to dinner and they end up coming back later that night.
Yeah.
And it's because they enjoyed it, and we're honored that they would choose to spend their time with us. But I think that's also indicative to the fact that, like, there's a population out there that there's a demand for it, and that they want it, and it's like, we're honored to be able to offer that, and we hope to continue to keep offering that, and we want to continue to offer that in new ways and new experiences. And I think that's where down the road, maybe in 2025, classes would be a great idea, and it would provide people that avenue for a relatively low cost to experience something like that.
Yeah, I definitely think so too, man. I want to kind of give you your flowers right now, just because you did an amazing thing here.
I appreciate
it. I see nothing but success in the future with you, with everything that you do. Your energy in here and outside of here is the exact same. Every time I see you, you're the same, Dave, and I love that about you.
Thank you.
And man, it's just awesome to see what you did with this space and location, and seeing that you did it completely out of faith. And seeing that, I've honestly, your situation as far as being a man of faith and honorable, I've never seen it done the way that you do it. So hats off to you on that as well, because it shows, first of all, we are human. We like to have a good time. We like to enjoy our human pleasures. And I say alcohol is definitely one of those pleasures that we like to enjoy.
Sure.
And you give a amazing experience through all of it. So,
well, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate
yes, sir.
That.
And I hope to be able to go back on the podcast, and when we do a big podcast episode one day of everybody, I hope to have you on and see where your success has led to, and hopefully the classes are up and going and everything. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Be cool.
Man, we appreciate you having us on, and if there's any shout-outs that you want to give to anybody besides Jay Manley or anything, your crew or anything like that,
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, my God.
Yeah.
My wife, secondly, my girls at home. Man, I'm part of a great church here, Love Multiply Church.
Yeah.
And then, this downtown.
Yeah.
This Frankfurt is a special city, and it has been so cool to be a part of Frankfurt opening up and accepting that it is a place that people want to come visit.
Yeah, it is. It's new to me, because being here my whole life, it's like, for the longest, you didn't see a lot of tourism or anything like that. You didn't see people wanting to come visit Frankfurt. And now people come into the barbershop and they're like, we love this town. Like, this is an awesome place. Like, and growing up here, I guess, you just get so used to it. You're like, it's my city, Yeah. But it's cool to see people come from outside, open up businesses, and it gives me a new love for Frankfurt as well, because it lets me see, like, we are being progressive.
100%.
We are moving taking steps in the right direction.
Moving that needle, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Little by little, moving that needle. And then
That's
lastly, I just appreciate you for inviting me into this space and being a part of this and what you're doing. And it's cool to see another young entrepreneur and that you're getting out there and you're making it happen. So I appreciate you, brother.
Man, I appreciate it, man. Me and Lyle and Austin, man, we've been going around and going to local businesses, and it's been a pleasure to make a connection with these guys and make a connection with everybody that we've been talking to. And I think as much as we enjoy just like doing this, I think the thing that I love the most about it is promotion of the businesses.
Love that.
And putting them out there and giving them just the time to tell their story and why they started, because the next generation needs to see why people started businesses and what we go through it. Yeah, when you first had to move, you know, that was I'm sure a thing that was weighing on your shoulders so much, like on your mind, on your heart, but keeping your faith and just knowing like, hey, I'm gonna take this leap.
Sure.
I'm gonna take this leap, and the net will appear. It will be there. Because,
absolutely. And it has, time and time.
Yeah. So I think it's a beautiful thing, and I just appreciate everybody letting us come into their space and do this. So,
yeah,
man, if you guys are ever in Frankfurt and you don't know about Frankfurt or anything, this is a great hub to come to. You can even stay here, you know? So I think that's awesome to have the Airbnbs to be a part of this and everything. And I didn't realize how much of a team effort this was right here.
Yeah.
So,
for sure.
And my big thing on the team is everybody playing their role. It's something that we talk about a lot. It's just everybody handling their position and stuff. And you guys are doing it, man. So,
appreciate it.
You know, cheers to you.
Cheers. Thanks, brother.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you.
And you guys, to the next episode. This is CultureOf. We're at House of Commons. Make sure you guys come down, get a drink, get some knowledge, and enjoy this fellow right here. Till next time. Awesome.